Good evening. Once again, this is attorney Talib Karim with STEM4US, and we have a really special program for you this afternoon or this evening. We have not just one STEM professional, but two STEM professionals joining us this evening, and that is none other than two of the most fabulous people that I know, none other than Todd and Monique Stewart, who are a pair of STEM professionals, STEM parents, and lifelong partners. And I'm looking forward to their advice to us on how they've been able to manage to raise talented young people, particularly in this pandemic, how they've been able to achieve personal successes on many different fronts, and how they've been able to really keep their partnership together. What is their secret sauce? So we're looking forward to them sharing some of those secrets. I want you to, if you haven't already done so, to like this program, to subscribe to the program, and to leave a comment and or question in the comment box. And we are committed to making sure that we get back those responses to you. So without any further ado, let me just welcome our guests, Todd and Monique. How are you all doing, and where are you guys beaming into us from, as they say?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening, Todd Stewart, lifelong friend of Talib. Thank you, first of all, for the invitation to kind of share our story today. We are coming to you live and in person from glorious Laurel, Maryland, in our basement, home office. Okay, well, yeah. So, yep.
Yeah.
And tell me about this whole pandemic. First of all, we can't take anything for granted about the challenges that we all are facing. How are you and your families faring? And I pray that you guys have not had any more challenging times than the rest of us.
Yeah. So well, when this whole COVID situation first started, it definitely was a challenge. Learning to live together again, because of course our kids that were in college all came back home, and so we all had to learn to coexist and get along, which we did, which was great, but it was definitely a challenge, and it was different. And I did find myself some days saying, wow, did we really all live together at one time? But yeah, it's a little different because, our kids are 18 and over. So, and they've been off to college. And so when they come home, of course, they have to follow mom and dad's rules. And so we, there was some challenges here and there. And then also, with everybody being on the virtual platform, all of us trying to use Wi-Fi, we had one office space. So, we weren't ready for that either. So we had to readjust and reconfigure some things because all five of us were trying to, do work from home in different spaces, sitting on the bed, at the dining room table, all of that. And then, finishing a work day, a 10 to 12 hour work day, some days it seemed like, and then having to have dinner, get dinner ready because everybody needed to eat because you couldn't go to a restaurant. So it was definitely a challenge, but I looked at it as really, to me, I kind of looked at it as a blessing. It was wonderful to have an opportunity to have everyone back home again. It was kind of like pushing a reset button. It's like, wow, we actually have an opportunity to have everybody back home again, live together, talk together, learn to, get to know each other all over again. So I saw that as a wonderful opportunity. One of our kids, Brendan, he goes to school in California, so he had been 3,000 miles away. Lexi was finishing up college, and Christian was finishing up his senior year. So we had a lot of things going on. We were juggling a lot at that time and just trying to deal with the situation that was dealt with to all of us at that time, and, with Christian not being able to really experience a senior year like he wanted to, that was different. Lexi, same thing. It was her senior year. She was graduating. So it was definitely a challenge. You want to add anything?
No, I mean, and health-wise, we actually had our daughter tested positive for COVID, and we had a false positive for our youngest son, who's at North Carolina A&T currently as a freshman. So, dealing with that and kind of the unknown component of what that really means to you as a family unit, kind of impacted us. But, fortunately, we weren't, put on the roles of the 500,000 that some unfortunate people in the U.S. are now. So, that's a blessing. We do have family and friends that have unfortunately, been deceased because of COVID. But, it's like Monique said, it's been a challenge. She hasn't been the best coworker. I'm threatening to call HR on her because she's not really the best, sharer of space at times. But, other than that, we just make it work.
Me? Really? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The dueling conference calls was definitely a challenge because my coworkers know him. They call him the man with the booming voice because they can always hear his calls in the background. So.
Well, that is actually an amazing kind of conversation because I think that many of us have had to, basically share space, you know what I mean, and coexist in ways that we never thought. But I think, at least for myself, I can say it has been a blessing, quite frankly, in disguise, right? So I definitely can relate to those challenges that you've related to us and conveyed. Let me ask you about your current work that you're doing now, and then we'll kind of go back down memory lane. I know that Todd, you're with Guardians of Honor, and I know that you, Monique, are with the Department of Transportation. Both of you all are in key leadership roles in these positions, and again, our conversations that we host on a weekly basis are designed to give parents and teachers kind of tools or almost arrows in their quiver that they can kind of pull out and share with their young people in ways to motivate and inspire them and help them to get through these challenging times. So for our parents and our educators out there who are listening tonight, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do currently and how you've again had to adapt perhaps in these times for the work that you do? Why don't you start with Todd?
Okay. I am currently the project and operations manager for Guardians of Honor. It's a small women-owned company. We primarily operate in the government contracting sector. I personally specialize in operations, and we do a lot of grants management work. We have a footprint in several federal agencies, basically supporting them in all kinds of ways, program management, project management, grant review, process improvement, business redevelopment, IT kind of runs the gamut. And the beauty of working with the government is, little known secret, sometimes government workers don't like to do work. So it keeps people like me, as government contractors, she's different. She doesn't clock out at 5 o'clock. We have this debate on why she's the only federal worker I know that still works at 5:01. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, we manage several large, millions of dollars contracts, and the blessing in disguise, which is COVID, is that one of my specialties is I am a Zoom guru, and on a virtual platform. I mean, our event management sector, obviously, we had a lot of on-site support. We did, conferences, symposiums, workshops, anything from something as small as one, something as large as 5,000. I've managed those projects. But in this COVID environment, most organizations have been forced to go 100% virtual. And so to the extent I was able to be nimble enough and leverage my expertise in the virtual realm, we're doing more work. Actually, I'm doing probably twice the work that I was doing when COVID wasn't there, because, you know, obviously I don't have to travel anymore, but I'm managing several meetings a day. In fact, today my day started at 6 and I didn't get off until just before you invited me to the to backstage. So it's been good. I've kind of had, you know, we'll get into kind of my path to this point, you know, a little later, you know, as my background, but it's good. I love solving problems, and so I'm uniquely qualified to do that. I hate the administrivia, so, you know, one of my kind of nuggets for the young people that are you know, trying to figure out what they want to be in life is just be something that you want to be ultimately, and don't be something that somebody tells you should be. I mean, that's probably one of my key takeaways, is that, you know, ultimately it boils down to be passionate about something. And it's okay if you don't know what that something is right away, because I didn't. So that's kind of my nugget. I'll actually turn it over to the star.
So, yes, so I do work for the U.S. Department of Transportation. We have several transportation modal administrations that fall under U.S. DOT. So the different modes of transportation. So I work for the rail portion. So I work for the Federal Railroad Administration. I am a senior program manager, mechanical engineer, and workforce development team lead for the Office of Research and Development at FRA. And so my main focus areas with my program areas is doing research and development for rolling stock equipment and components. So I tell everybody that's anything above the railroad tracks. So it's the brakes, the wheels, the roller bearings, wayside detection, where we're monitoring the health of the equipment, both on the train and off the train. So yeah, so basically, and I kind of tell people it's almost like CSI. So at FRA, we have inspectors that go out and conduct inspections on, you know, if there's an accident or a derailment that you might see on TV. Our inspectors at FRA go out to the accident scene, they collect the evidence and everything, just to, you know, and they bring that back to us in the Office of Research and Development, all the information, the data, you know, all the event reporter information, that kind of thing. And then we do the research to find out what caused the accident and what we can do to prevent the accident from happening again. So it's pretty exciting. We also look at we look at advanced technology, because of course, you know, Europe has the more so advanced railroad technology, more so than the United States. So we're always talking with our colleagues in Europe and Asia, trying to find out what they're doing to make their trains run faster and safer. So I also do, I do the investigations behind accidents and derailments, but I also do the research exchange between, you know, other colleagues and stakeholders within the United States and around the world, to try to see what we can do to create advanced technology and equipment to make our railroads run safer and faster, you know, hopefully. So one of my big projects was an advanced braking system, which would allow the trains to stop faster and in a shorter distance. A lot of people don't realize when they go to try to run these railroad tracks that it takes a train about a mile to stop. So we're doing research to try to find out how we could hopefully try to make these trains stop faster and in shorter distance. So, so yeah, it's a pretty fun job. I will say there's not many people there that look like me in the railroad industry, nor at FRA. So it's different. When I first started there, it was definitely kind of lonely because I didn't have really a support system, because there was nobody there that looked like me. I was the first Black female engineer to be hired on at Federal Railroad Administration. So so it was a little lonely. But I'm always up for the challenge. When I was in school there, you know, it was kind of the same thing in all my classes. And when you're in STEM, you know, back then there weren't too many people that looked like me. So I was sort of already used to kind of charting my own path and, you know, having to compete with others and, you know, finding support systems and resources to make sure that I was going to be successful. So it wasn't a big deal for me when I did go into the rail industry. didn't see many people that looked like me because I had already kind of been in that situation in school. Yeah, so it's, just believe in yourself. Any tips that I might have is just to believe in yourself, make yourself undeniable, follow your passion, as Todd said, and definitely, be the best at whatever you're doing, the best that you can be. And also, I think you kind of mentioned what's been the difference in working in this COVID environment. So I was teleworking before COVID. I would go into the office maybe once or twice a week. So I was blessed in that fashion that I could work from home with my job and just go in once or twice a week, which was nice. But when COVID hit and we started this COVID telework, it was totally different because everybody's working from home. And so, as Todd said, same with him, I'm finding that I am on Zoom meetings or team meetings, phone calls all day, every day. It gets a little gray with the work-life balance because the time just kind of runs together. And like he said, I'll look up and I'm still on the laptop at 7 o'clock and I started working at maybe 7 or 8. So yeah, that has been a true challenge trying to do the work-life balance with this COVID telework. So
that's an amazing kind of description about both the work that you're doing and the challenges that you guys have faced in your positions. And so let us talk about a little in terms of what made you guys, what went into making you guys. And let's start off with Todd in terms of your career from a high school track star, literally, to a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy. Can you share a little bit about that story and how you got excited about the military and particularly the Air Force Academy and what was a major impetus or what was a major reason that you decided to go in that direction?
Sure. Little anecdote here. When I was in high school, as a freshman, I was 4'11", weighed 98 pounds, and wasn't athletic or anything. But I tried sports. I was actually an excellent wrestler and a baseball player. But unfortunately, my mom had this rule that if you fail anything or your GPA wasn't up to snuff, that you weren't playing any sports. So I played baseball and wrestled my first 3 years in high school. And I decided to take a typing class when I was a senior. And I don't know, for those that have taken typing classes, they teach you the home row and how to put your fingers on the home row. Well, I didn't feel like cheating back then and looking down when I was taking the test. So I took a test and I was one off. I was actually literally one key over for everything. So when I took my midterm, it was gobbledygook and obviously I failed. So I then became, according to my mom, ineligible. And the way I found track was my senior year. I missed my other, sports and stuff. And the only thing that was still left was I saw these people running. We trained in our lunchroom and we run into a locker and all that. I'm like, well, that's pretty much the only sport I can do. And let me just go out and try this stuff. I was always like fast in the neighborhood, all the, back in the day for people our age, we actually used to go outside and play and, red light, green light, hide go seek, all those things games that are not like, don't require texting or Instagram or anything like that. But long story short, I joined the track team and actually discovered that I was quite good. I started as an 800-meter runner, and I only know speed. So for those that know me, anything over 400 meters is just ridiculous. And why would you do that unless you're doing it in the car? So became good, learned that, okay, I like this track thing, but, wasn't really getting any looks, scholarship wise. And then, I was, good academically and decided to kind of, apply by accident. My dad was like, hey, apply this, Air Force Academy. I'm like, military? Me? I'm a knucklehead from Philadelphia going to Air Force? I'm not thinking about that. But I had a helicopter mom growing up that, was the one, don't tag my son, don't do this, that's my baby, oh my God. I had a mom like that. So when I applied for the Air Force Academy and got a nomination and got accepted to the prep school. I didn't go straight into the academy. I went to the prep school. I was also accepted to Naval Academy and all that, but I was from Philadelphia, and I just told you the story about my mom. I figured it would at least take her a plane ride to come see me and show up if I went to the Air Force as opposed to Navy. Yes, or West Point. That's a car ride for her, and the way she drove back then was like almost immediate if something went down. So that's really why I chose the Air Force. Had no idea, wasn't really compelled to be a pilot. I was blind, I had surgery, so I didn't really have that aspiration of being a pilot. I didn't even know what the military was. I just thought I was going to try it for a year. They told me I was going to make some money, and as this, and I could ultimately decide if this didn't work out, I could always go and pursue track or do something else somewhere else. So I ended up going to the Air Force Academy and met some of my lifelong, the greatest friends. Best decision I ever made, because it forced me to grow up, because I really was not the most disciplined person. Made many mistakes along the way, made mistakes at the academy. But as Monique said, it's about finding those resources to help you. And I'm sure we'll get further into that discussion later about, how the importance of friendships, mentorships, and just making sure that people who do look like us in an environment like the Air Force Academy, where you are less than, you don't have two digits next to the percentage of how many are at the academy. I mean, there weren't many people to look. I'm light skinned, but I'm still black. But not a lot to look like us. So I mean, we kind of had to figure out why. And people that look like them, they had that support system already in place. The great thing about the prep school, it allowed a lot of us, because a lot of us at the prep school, it's a higher percentage. We became friends, and it actually gave us that 1 year advantage on people that go directly into the academy. The friendships we established, the connections, we kind of learned, had the military thing down, and we had each other's backs. And that was really critical. I don't think I would have graduated from the academy if I didn't go to the prep school, because the people that I rely on to this day were preppies with me, and they still hold some of my greatest secrets. I hold theirs, so it kind of works out. But yeah. So I did that. I'll stop there, let her share her story, and then we'll kind of continue, post academy, if that's okay, or unless you want to do it another way.
Absolutely, please go right ahead.
Okay. So my story. So when I was in high school, I loved math and science. Of course, it's kind of the story of a lot of engineers, but I love math and science, and I had some really good math and science teachers in high school who challenged me, but also supported me. They looked like me, and they made sure that I was successful. When I took tests, if the test didn't come out quite right, they would take time, sit with me, go through the test and kind of teach me, the right way to do the problems and everything. So it made me sort of like math and science, because I had, teachers that took time and actually, taught me and encouraged me to go into a math and science career field. So, of course, met with my guidance counselor, did a little research and said, what's a way to combine both math and science? And there was engineering. So I said, okay, I think that's probably what I want to do. I think that would be best for me. And then too, when I was little, I used to kind of take things apart and put them back together. So I knew that I wanted to do something that I could kind of see and touch. So I was working with the guidance counselor trying to figure out, well, what discipline of engineering? I think I actually started out in electrical engineering, but by the time I got to school and discovered that, with electrical engineering, I couldn't see what I was working on. I said, okay, forget that. I will go into mechanical. But anyway, so I was trying to figure out what college I wanted to go to my senior year. And I was kind of going back and forth. I was torn. I had visited some HBCUs and, visited some PWIs, predominantly white institutions as well, and just couldn't figure out between the two which ones I want to do. I had people in my ear that were telling me, you have good grades, you're in the honors program, all that in high school, don't go to an HBCU, you're going to need that. You need a good name behind you in order for you to get a good job in engineering when you graduate. Then I had in my other ears somebody saying, well, you know, go to an HBCU because you can get a good foundation there, you know, this and that. And so, you know, I had both sides. Go to a PWI, go to an HBCU, go to somewhere like MIT or Georgia Tech, you know, go to an HBCU to get a good foundation. So I was really, really torn with that. So one of my last campus visits was to North Carolina Central University. And I got on that campus, and I can't explain it, but I just felt like I was home. I felt like I was amongst family. You know, the students were very nice. You know, they were hugging, you know, just hugging all of us that were in the group. The teachers, same thing, hugging us. And they're like, you know, just very comforting and very caring with all the information that they shared and how they would be there and support us through all of our classes and everything and make sure we're successful. I visited the math and science department there, and they told me about this program called the dual degree program. And that's where you go to a liberal arts school for 3 years, an HBCU, liberal arts school for 3 years, and then you transfer to a predominantly white engineering school for 2 years. So I said, oh my goodness, this is it. Because I was torn between which one I was going to go to. And I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm here. I'm going to North Carolina Central University. So I did that, went there for 3 years. I majored in math. I pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. While I was there, I had a blast. I loved it. I had so many, I mean, it was like it was a family atmosphere. I enjoyed every second of my time at North Carolina Central University. I can't explain, you know, anybody who's gone to an HBCU knows it's just like you're there with family. And I had support everywhere. It took out the element of having to try to compete with others, you know, be in class with others who may not have been as supportive. Any class that I was in, we knew each other and we knew we were going to help each other, you know, to succeed. You didn't have to have that challenge of having to not think you were safe or, you know, not have somebody looking out for you. So anyway, so I did that, went to Central for 3 years, transferred to Georgia Tech. I thank God I had gone to Central first because Georgia Tech was like, I was like a deer in headlights. It was just, you know, shocking. I was in most of my engineering classes by myself. I was the only Black female engineer in most of my classes. I didn't really get a lot of help from the other students that were in the class who were mostly they didn't look like me. You know, I didn't have a lot of fun in Atlanta. Atlanta was amazing, but I spent every single weekend studying because I was determined I was not going to be defeated. I was determined I was going to be undeniable. And I was determined I was going to prove these people wrong because I had people there too that were telling me, oh, you're not going to make it. You're not going to do it. Why don't you just change your major? I was mechanical engineering, change it to industrial engineering or change it to business or something like that, something a little bit easier. So I was determined that I was not going to do that. I was going to follow my dream and my goal. What I also forgot to tell you was that when I was at North Carolina Central, I did a study abroad in Germany because I was taking German while I was at Central. So I studied in Germany for a summer and I went to the BMW manufacturing plant, and that also sealed the deal for me to be a mechanical engineer because I got to visit the plant there as well. So, but anyway, moving forward to Georgia Tech. Yeah, I spent a lot of time just beating myself up, trying to study and make sure that I knew all the concepts, the formulas, everything, trying to memorize this and that. And then at one point, somebody came to me, well, of course I had my sorority sisters there who I hooked up with, and they told me, Monique, you know, there is a system here at Georgia Tech that these fraternities and sororities had, which I didn't know about. So some of the other sororities and fraternities had a system that they used where they had old tests, old homework assignments. You know, I'm sitting here spinning my wheels doing all this to try to make sure I, you know, understand all the concepts and everything. Meanwhile, these other folks in my class are using this system that they had, the system. So, but anyway, I finally caught on to the system. However, I was, for me, I still wanted to make sure I, learned all the concepts and knew what I was doing. But it did teach me all about being resourceful, trying to, using your resources, seeking out resources, and also working in teams and helping each other. So I will say that helped me. It was hard, it was a challenge, but it helped me to be able to survive in the real world when I actually got out to work a real job in the real world. While I was at Georgia Tech, I also did pursue a co-op assignment with Mobil Oil. It was Mobil Oil at the time. So it took me a year longer to graduate from Georgia Tech because I did a whole year working with Mobil Oil while I was in school. Glad I did that. If you can do that, if you can work while you're in school, do like an internship or a co-op assignment like I did. It was a co-op, so I went to school every other quarter and worked at Mobil Oil every other quarter up here in Virginia.
And I was gonna actually ask you a little bit about that, whole idea of how some students are not taking advantage of co-ops because they don't want to basically delay their graduation. But before I dive in that, and I want to get both of you guys to chime in on this, is you talked about the distinction between the atmospheres between the HBCUs and the basically the historically Black colleges and those colleges that are not historically Black colleges. And in particular, the kind of, almost system that exists where some people in colleges that are not historically Black have set up for them to succeed. And clearly, as someone who's been both at the Air Force Academy, where I could definitely, glean that there was a system and that I wasn't a part of the team that was, basically, using that system to its advantage. I wanted to kind of get your sense about particularly how you, encourage your children to look at that dichotomy, right? Where on the one hand, you have, the colleges that might have all the resources, right, that are not historically Black colleges, but then the colleges that may not have all the resources in the world, but are there to, be your family. How do you, basically help how did you help your children to square those challenges? And what advice do you have for other young people who are looking at what college to attend with those same issues, unfortunately, still going on today?
Yeah. Did you want to speak to that? Or?
Okay. Well, we have a very, very unique situation in that our daughter Alexa, who's our oldest, she's what, 23?
Yeah, 24.
About 24 next month. She actually went to a private boarding school for high school. She was the only Black in her school for the last 2 years. The only Black. She went to a school in Bethel, Maine. She actually had a snow skateboarding scholarship to go to that school, and it's in Bethel, Maine, as lily white as you can get. And
I don't know. Did you say a skateboarding scholarship?
Yes.
Now this is crazy. I mean, my daughter likes, riding skateboards. I'd love to have her, but I mean, I didn't know they actually had skateboarding scholarships.
Neither did I. I went and bought her one of those little Walmart specials and thought, okay, this is something, this is babysitting 101. This skateboard will be the babysitter. We'll take her out. That's it. No, she took it to a whole nother level. She's like X Game. She's basically a equally adept at skateboarding and snowboarding because it's kind of the movements. But the opportunity presented itself. I personally didn't agree with it at the time because I for selfish reasons, my daughter is probably the best athlete in our entire family. But it's back to, as a parent, you have to support your children's endeavors, even though it's not something you want. And it was hard. To this day, it's hard for me to she calls me a bulldozer parent. I haven't seen the data that supports that, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll say I'm that way. I wanted her to stay home and and go to. I think she would have, got a full ride academically to pretty much any school you want, track wise, soccer or basketball. She's that good. But she did that, and I think it really came at a cost because as an adolescent, as you're growing, you're developing, you're learning how to make decisions on your own. Her support system that we talked about previously was instantly taken away. For me to get to her was an 11-hour drive, but she was up there in kind of a cocoon. One of her best friends' dad owns Bacardi. And she actually, went over there, and they invited her to come spend some time at the castle in Spain. And I had to remind her, I'm like, well, her dad owns Bacardi. Your dad likes to sip Bacardi every now and then, and you really need to understand it as a life lesson the difference between the two. So fast forward, and the whole time she's there, I'm fascinated. I'm like, I can just imagine writing that essay to get to school. And the story that she could tell about what it was like being the only African American in a school, what they did, and the cost associated with that. Something as simple as I want to get my hair done for her required an 1.5-hour drive to Portland, Maine, with coordination. You had to first get there, and it wasn't like you could do it every day. So when it came time for pictures and stuff like that, we literally had to coordinate plane rides. She had to get her hair done here by, somebody that knew how to do black hair. When she went back, one time she went back, they didn't tell us the picture was going to happen, and they had pictures. She looking for y'all black women out there, and I don't want to offend anybody. I may be not saying this the right way. She was looking a hot mess, and so to them, they didn't think anything of it. But when I saw the proofs of what the yearbook was going to look, but I went apeshit.
Oh my goodness.
Beep for technology, you figure that out. So I'm like, oh no. So we had to have a discussion, and then we like, no, you will rescind the book, and we need to get her done the way she needs to be done. I'm not gonna have her looking like the stereotypical what you would think. So she had to deal with that. Long story short, she left there, graduated, and her first school in college, she went to Goucher University, which is a liberal arts school outside of Baltimore, which, again, couldn't figure out why she wanted to go there, but that was the choice she made. Again, as a parent, as a father, we supported that. So she did that, didn't necessarily focus academically to the degree she should, so we had to make some decisions that were best for our family. And she was at a crossroads. So she went from that environment. So fast forward, she's now 6 years immersed in, all my friends are mostly white, this environment, blah, 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 to now the decision was, oh, I want to run track. And she ends up going to Bowie State, which is an HBCU about 15 minutes from our house. So you can imagine the clashes of culture. So she had this period of growth and development. So she went from having that to basically becoming Angela Davis Jr. to this day. So we can dive into that a little bit later. That would be a whole other podcast. But so she has the perspective like her mom. So she's seen both sides. Me, I don't have the perspective. As you know, the Air Force Academy is as far away from an HBCU as you can possibly get. So I don't have that perspective. But to see her go through it and to kind of hear her stories about what she liked about one versus the other and the decisions that she's made, along the line, kind of have a meaningful impact. I don't know if I answered your question, so I'm gonna shut up and let Monique.
But and then we do have, we also have our son, Brendan, who goes to USC, University of Southern California. And then we have Christian, who goes to North Carolina A&T. So it was interesting, with the comparison too, with Lexi running track at Bowie State and Brendan running track at USC, we can see the crazy differences in the resources that are available. He's at a D1 school and she's at Bowie State, an HBCU. It was like night and day, the resources that are available. So, I mean, you do what you have to do. And then as parents, you have to understand and respect the differences of each child they're each one is different, and they have their own needs and likes and passions. And so you as a parent definitely have to recognize that and try to support them in their differences. Brendan did really well with track, and was, fortunately, he was blessed with many scholarship offers. And so he went to where he thought, it would get him, he could realize his dreams of, training and, having access to all the resources to hopefully go to the Olympics one day. So, his brother and sister, Christian and Lexi, joke on him every so often because he's at USC and not at an HBCU because they love their HBCUs. But yeah, he's been just fine. He's doing well. Christian's doing well at North Carolina A&T. And so we allowed them to make their choices. We didn't really sway them one way or the other. But, they all made their own choices and we supported them in that. So yeah, anything else you want to add? Yeah.
And so let me also ask, in terms of your first jobs out of college, and I appreciate that distinction. And you mentioned the path that you took towards the externship or the co-op, and if you could explain that for parents, that would be great. And then tell us what immediately you did upon graduation.
Okay. So like I said, I did a co-op assignment, and I talked with my mom and my dad about that decision because I knew, gosh, as much as I wasn't crazy about Georgia Tech, I said, oh my goodness, this is gonna, put me back a whole year, if I do this co-op assignment. And that was definitely a concern of mine and my parents, in trying to figure out, okay, we're gonna pay for another year of school, how's this gonna work out? But we finally, we together made the decision that, you've been offered the job, the opportunity, let's do it. And we figured that it would be something great to have on my resume. Yes, it would take me an extra year, but it would give me that job experience that I would not get had I not done an internship, had I not done a co-op assignment at all. And I was also able to, use that money towards school as well, that I made, the money that I made during the co-op assignment. So it was amazing because each quarter I was able to get experience in the different departments at Mobil Oil Corporation. I was actually building gas stations, a construction project manager here in the DMV area. And I was able to kind of move around to the different departments within Mobil Oil. And each time I did my co-op assignment, I was adding to my resume as I went along. So by the time it was, time for me to graduate, I had I had 11 job offers because of that work experience that I had. Granted, it took me a whole extra year, but I had so many offers just coming, just falling in my lap. It was just incredible because I had that work experience, a whole year of work experience that other students did not have. So you have to, think about and kind of, for parents, tell your students, tell your kids, it may take you a little longer, but what's going to make you stand out amongst the other students that will be interviewing for that same job? What's going to make you stand out and make your resume just rise to the top, And so for me, it was definitely that work experience that I had at Mobil Oil Corporation. It was nice to be in a position where I had 11 jobs to choose from. So, I just so happened to choose a job at CSX Transportation, which is a railroad. I don't know. Yeah, But anyway, that's how I got into the railroad industry. But I would definitely say if students have the opportunity, summer internship is fine as well. I mean, that's during the summer, so you can still, make it through all your classes. But a co-op assignment was even better. I had more experience than anyone that had done a summer internship. So because I, like I said, had a year's worth of job experience, which was great. And I established a lot of networks, people that could help me, that I networked with at Mobil Oil as well. So.
And then, as you know, at anybody that graduates from the Air Force Academy, you don't have to rely on having job offers. You are endowed with a job upon graduation. That's the return on their investment for giving you the 4 years of college for free, or nothing's free, what they got out of you. So my first assignment was actually a minority affairs advisor, which basically I counsel, high schoolers on what it took to actually, go into any of the commissioning sources in the Air Force. So my area of responsibility was from DC up to Maine. I would go to all of the college fairs and kind of mine the very few that had the credentials, all of the necessities to get successfully into the academy, which are the nomination, the appointment, grades, and SAT, ACT scores. So I did that for a year. It was probably one of the most fulfilling jobs I had, because I was them. Once upon a time, sitting in there being told no. And a lot of times you need somebody, in the decision-making process at the academy, you need somebody to advocate. So I viewed myself as that person that would advocate for that, maybe marginal person, that was just a little close, just need a little bit of okay, you become a candidate for the prep school. Worked out well for me. So I went in, took the time to kind of learn their personal stories, and made them more than a number, because when you're sitting there, you can imagine the amount of people that apply to these academies. Sitting there, you're only a number. Your number, your social security number, your SAT score, your GPA. That's all you are to these people making decisions. So it's my job to kind of personify that number and to convince the people that were ultimately going to make the decisions that this person was worth the chance, because you took a chance on me one day. So that was very fulfilling. And then from there, I went into space operations as my career field. And then, finally I went to the Presidential Honor Guard, which was the most fun, best job you could possibly imagine. And then this one over here she didn't want to move to Cheyenne, Wyoming to be a missileer after that. So that's when I made the road less travel decision to get out of the Air Force and go into corporate real estate.
Can you just pause there and talk a little bit about the Honor Guard? Because as a former Air Force Academy member of the Honor Guard team, or at least an applicant to the Honor Guard team, I hadn't actually completed the training necessary to actually get the Honor Guard patch. But can you tell us a little bit about the distinction between the Honor Guard at the Academy and the Honor Guard in the Air Force, and in particular, I guess perhaps the creme de la creme of Honor Guards, and that is the Presidential Honor Guard. Can you, and this is a real, kind of inside the ballpark conversation. There are very, very few people who are not in the Air Force who know anything about the Honor Guard, and then even people who in the Air Force don't know about the Honor Guard. So if you can kind of touch on that, that would be very interesting.
Well, first of all, this might go off the rails quickly, so I apologize. But for those that the backstory, Talib was our hero at the academy. Talib was a winger, and he probably hasn't tuned this morning. You probably don't know this, but Talib was a national champion boxer, and he represented our entire class, whipped the mess out of a senior at our, what we call these wing open championships boxing. So he did that. Talib did all the things that were difficult. And the one thing I can say about my experience is I kind of try to stay under the radar. Talib embraced having that target on his back. And one of the things he did was he joined the Honor Guard at the Air Force Academy. Why would you want to do? You're already getting paid. You already got all this stuff. And now you're going to throw this craziness on top of it. So the distinction between the Air Force, before the Honor Guard at the Air Force Academy was, I, to this day, still think they're crazy. I thought you were crazy for doing it. I had no idea. And for those that know me, you would never equate Todd Stewart and Honor Guard during my academy years, because I was an athlete, that came with some privileges at the academy, but we didn't have that dedicated, that day in, the physical. I didn't have to go through that. So when I went to my first assignment, I was a space operations officer. So I went there, was in Cheyenne Mountain, worked for U.S. Space Command. I would brief the 4-star, once a week. I would give him his briefs. I mean, I had a lot of responsibility as a second and a first lieutenant in the Air Force. And so because of that, I had a relationship with someone who was already there. One of our classmates who's actually a major general in the Air Force, currently active still. He was in the honor guard, and so I applied to the presidential honor guard stationed at Bolling Air Force Base in DC. So, when I was looking for assignments, it was either try to do this special assignment in DC, or I was going to go sit in somebody's missile silo in North Dakota, Wyoming, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. So I was fortunate to be selected to that assignment, which I don't know, I'm looking at a picture of, that was me. I was an officer in the honor guard, so it was very different. I still had to train. I still had to be athletically fit. I was the one out in front at all of the important meetings. Whenever the President of the United States, the Secretary of the Air Force Chief of Staff had their counterparts from around the world come to the United States, we were the unit tasked with doing the ceremonial kind of pomp and circumstance, all the White House arrival ceremonies. I did probably 1,000 funerals at Arlington National Cemetery, as the officer leading the people getting full honors funerals. I was the Air Force officer in charge of Secretary Brown's funeral. For those that remember the Secretary of Commerce, I went, retrieved his body from Dover Air Force Base, brought it back. He lied in repose at the Commerce Building. I was in charge of that. So it was really, really a highly visible. We briefed the Chief of Staff pretty much weekly, so it was a very high visibility assignment, which was fun.
Can I just ask you, because this is a question, because at the time that Secretary Brown died, I was in my first assignment out of law school at the Federal Communications Commission, and I can remember when we first got the news, and it was strange because when I heard about it, I was also an avid listener to this alternative radio program that a member of Congress for whom I worked, Congressman Merv Dimely, turned me on to, called Pacifica. And they had an interview with someone who talked about the accident. Some would call it an accident. I think it was Germany, or where did the plane go down? Do you remember, Todd? I don't know quite frankly if you remember. It was either Germany or Bulgaria or one of these countries like that. And in particular, it was said that Secretary Brown's body, when they found it, it had a hole in his head. And they said that he died from again, wounds from an airplane accident, but they, surprisingly found this hole in the head, which appeared to be a wound from a gun. And so, since you were actually there to retrieve the body, I'm just going to curiously ask, did you actually see the body, and if you were able to confirm that report that I remember was stated on that particular time?
So when I say we retrieved the body, I got it off the plane when it landed at Dover. At no point did I see his deceased body. It was obviously in a flag draped casket. We did ceremony there at Dover, and then we brought the body and did all the ceremonies around DC. Okay. And then another thing about the honor guard, we train every day. We're the ones. I also led the Air Force contingent for President Clinton's first inauguration. So I was the one that the officer in front. I think the picture you saw, one of the pictures you have, is me leading the Air Force 9x9 up, down Constitution, did the pass review, all that. But we train. Our Super Bowl on the Presidential Honor Guard is actually state funerals. When a president dies, we have plans in place, contingencies to go get that wherever, and we execute that. And state funerals and inaugurations are kind of what we train for. That's all I can tell you.
Well, that is very interesting. I mean, in terms of these assignments, and let me just ask you, as you kind of think about the conclusion. I have 3 questions that I want to throw at both of you guys, and I can't believe it's almost been an hour already. This is, I know, right? It's just amazing. But 3 questions is one, and I think we have a couple of one question that's from one of our viewers who asked about, again, how did you focus your children on, how to become successful. And so in that, the question I'm going to ask you guys to leave us with is, what is your advice for parents on how they could, keep their children inspired and motivated, particularly in these times that we face of a COVID pandemic and economic instability and still, I think, racial division and animosity. So question one is that. Question two is, what has been your greatest accomplishment, and what has been your greatest out of your greatest accomplishment, what has it been? And in terms of your greatest defeat, I don't necessarily need you to answer what has been your greatest defeat, but what has been the greatest lesson that you've learned from that greatest challenge? And then lastly, how would you like to be, kind of remembered at the end of your career? Where would you like your career to end? And then at the end of your life, how would you like to be remembered? What would you like your greatest legacy to be? And we can start with ladies first.
Great. So let's see. Motivating.
In fact, what I think you do, maybe ask each question and go back and forth.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. Gotcha. So the first one about motivating our kids to be successful, I think that was the first one.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, now, with the COVID situation, I can't even imagine. Ours are older now, so they're kind of, doing their own thing, but I can't even imagine having to deal with the challenge now of kids having to learn in this virtual environment. But you do the best you can. So I will say one thing that we learned early on with our kids is, and it was a hard lesson to learn, and I always tell other parents, allow them to be themselves and be accountable and responsible for their schoolwork, for their academic, for their goals. Allow them to define them and map out what they need to do to reach those goals. As parents, we tend to, want to do all we can to prevent them from failing or experiencing failure. Well, we've got to reel ourselves back in and let them experience failure, because that's the way that they learn and grow. That's the only way. So, as much as it pains parents and hurts us to see our kids go through failure, they have to, you have to allow them the freedom to do that. There have been times I know when they had to take tests or they had projects that they had to do, and of course you want to just swoop in and help them and do the project and everything you can do to make sure they're successful. But I think that's the worst thing you could do, because then you're handicapping them. And then when they go out on their own in college, they're sitting around looking like, okay, who's going to help me? Or they don't know what to do. You want to prepare them to be successful and to live on their own, and be accountable for themselves once they do leave the nest and go to college. I always tell my kids, the best thing you could do for me, I was equipping you with what we were equipping you with what we could while you were here in the house, so that you could survive when you get out there in the world, in this crazy, unforgivable world. That's kind of what I kind of tell other parents is, you don't want to see them fail, but sometimes they have to. When they don't do well on a test or homework, or they need extra credit, don't you call the teacher. Have them call or email the teacher. It's their responsibility, because if you're doing it, again, you're setting them up for failure later. Once they get to college or work or whatever, they're not going to do it themselves. They're going to turn and think, okay, mom or dad, can you do this for me? Can you call my teacher? Can you email my teacher? No, let them do it, and they may have to go through it a couple of times where they're failing a couple of tests, and you're sitting there like, well, no, I'm not calling. You need to do it. It's your responsibility. But that's what you have to do to equip them to be successful later. You want to know that they're going to survive. Should, God forbid, something happen to you and you're not here, you want to know and believe they can survive on their own. So that's kind of my
And while you're scrolling through pictures, I guess, the answer to the question, what's my greatest accomplishment is right there. Those three people that you keep scrolling through. I mean, the joy of a parent watching your kids flourish is indescribable. I get more of a kick out of watching them succeed than I ever did, watching or having any level of success, in my personal life. To this day, like, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I live and die by the results. But right now, I'm living and dying by the results of my son running track, because I mean he was doubted every single step of the way. He got kicked out of 2 high schools. His coach couldn't get along with his dad, so he had literally, as a junior, got kicked out of school or kicked off his track team in April of his junior year, and then Brendan used that as fuel to become the number 2 sprinter in the entire U.S. to get a full ride at USC. So that was exciting, and he's been great. I mean, he's actually at the Air Force Academy right now competing in a meet this weekend, and I really, really wish I was there, but because of COVID, they wouldn't allow me to attend. But my coach, who's still there at the academy, offered me on Monday to come out there and work the meet just so I would have the opportunity. But I digress. That is my greatest accomplishment. And for parents out there, it's really about your job is as a mentor, shortening the learning curve. You made mistakes. We all make mistakes as parents. Your job as a parent is to not let your kids make those same mistakes. You can make another mistake, but don't make the ones I made, because I'm going to put you in front of the line. I'm not going to put you in the middle of the line, because you need to be better than the next person to be successful and get out of my pocket. So that's really what I really want you to do. Sorry.
Oh, Lord.
So next question, and last two is, again, what's been, then maybe to shorten it, what's been your greatest lesson from either the greatest success that you had or the greatest failure that you've had?
You take that one first. I'm thinking.
I'll do failure. I mean, it always goes back to the Air Force Academy. I mean, if you ask, and one of the other questions you said in advance is what would Todd tell his 17-year-old self? And I had fun at the academy. As an athlete, it got me out of things, and I had fun. I didn't focus on academics to the degree that I should. And my greatest failure is that I did not focus academically. I mean, you heard Monique's story about what she did and was willing to do to be great academically. Me, as you remember, we have this mentality as African Americans too. We call it 2-0 and go, because they call what they call the last person to wear a merit at the academy, lieutenant. So I kind of had that mentality, and had I known that if I were to give up or sacrifice some of my enjoyment now in these 4 years, where I would be now career-wise would be far surpassed. I would have focused on getting all A's, getting there, being competitive for graduate scholarships. I would have done all of that. That's the advice I give students now. But I feel hypocritical because I didn't do those things. But again, it's one of those, let me shorten that learning curve for you. Don't make this mistake. Buckle down. Fun will happen no matter what. And then if you ask me what my goal in life is, my goal in life is simple. I want to wake up when I'm done sleeping. And the only way you do that is if you're financially secure, independent, and don't have to rely on anybody else. And we should all aspire to attain that level of success where we don't have to work or answer anybody else, and we call our own shots. Back to you.
Absolutely. So yeah, I would say one of my, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was a failure, but there was, there was a job that I wanted at one point, and I got passed over for that. So again, that's kind of a situation where I allowed that to fuel me. And, I knew that from that point on, I definitely had to do what I needed to do to be undeniable. Yes, I do like my job, but I've also sort of recreated my job and found my passion in my job as well. I do mechanical engineering work, but I also believe in giving back and trying to do what I can do to make sure that there are others that come behind that look like me and that have opportunities even those that don't look like me, but just giving other kids the opportunity to excel in the STEM field as well. So I have kind of, it wasn't part of my job duties, but, I kind of took on the duties of workforce development and diversity, equity, inclusion. And I have found my passion in that area while I'm also doing engineering work. So I'm doing a lot with STEM and encouraging students to go into STEM fields and the railroad industry career field as well. And that's, one of the legacies I would love to leave behind is just hoping that, putting others in a position where they can succeed in the STEM field or, in the railroad engineering field, because there's not a lot of people that look like us in that field. So, yeah, so that's one thing I'd say. And then also just letting your failures fuel you. I remember back in school, and one thing parents would tell your kids, when I took the SAT, I bombed it. It was just terrible. I did horrible. And of course, I was told, well, you're not going to get into this school, you're not going to get in that school, because it was just my SAT scores were horrible. And when I speak to students, they're all stressed out about their SAT scores and their ACT scores. I said, don't even worry about that. I said, a lot of us don't test, many people don't test well. I think I had anxiety, I didn't test well, but, even though I totally bombed the SAT, I ended up graduating from Georgia Tech, magna cum laude with honors. So just don't let certain situations define you, and every experience, no matter whether it's good or bad, there's something to be learned from it and you grow from it. So take the little golden nuggets you can from each experience and allow that to help you grow and become undeniable. And then my greatest accomplishment, I'd have to say too, is just our kids, seeing their success. We've done it. In this world today, it's totally different than when we were younger. You have a lot of challenges and other things you have to deal with social media and everything else. And to be able to successfully raise children in today's environment is just, that's a major accomplishment. So, seeing that our kids are, pretty much on, they're successful, they're in school, they're doing well. I'm good. I'm happy with that.
Well, I can't really believe that you guys are about, you have children who were our age, Todd, when, you and I met. I still feel like I'm 17, 18, at the academy when we met, man, and so to think about that we're talking now and you have children who are actually older than we were, that makes me feel quite wise. I guess. That makes me feel quite wise. But, something else I have to say is that you guys look marvelous. As I said, you look marvelous together. You know what I mean? I really.
Y'all, Mr. Virtual Yoga Instructor, y'all athletic people, leave me alone.
No. You guys look marvelous together, man. And I can't leave without asking for just one tip, one of those secret ingredients that you guys have used to keep your relationship. How many years going?
26.
26 years. Okay. So one tip for, partners in life, for those of us who want to aspire for that longevity, what would you give us as an advice?
Well, I'll start. For me, I think it would be definitely supporting your partner in their goals, whatever they may be. I've had some far and out there goals and hobbies and things that I wanted to do, the whole bodybuilding thing and all that. And Todd supported me 150% with that. It was totally out from left field, but he was in the gym with me, and he's in the gym with me every day, and totally supporting me with whatever I do, and just being your spouse's biggest cheerleader. That's what you need. And then definitely, knowing what their love, like the 5 love languages. I can't say that enough. Try figure out what your partner's love language is and speak that love language.
What she said. And get some good earplugs.
What?
All right. I can definitely tell that one of the tips that you guys have mastered is, levity, and keeping that lightness and that joviality, if you will, amongst one another. And that's something I always try to remember for myself. So I just can't say how grateful, how grateful we are enough to you all for your, advice that you've given. So many of us have enjoyed this conversation so far. For any of you guys who haven't already done so, please go ahead and like this conversation, smack that subscribe button, and feel free to, even after the conversation, leave a comment or question, and we can try to make sure that we get that responded to by our guest speakers. I really do appreciate you guys taking the time, and also investing in our organization. And Monique, we definitely want to follow up with you in terms of getting the Federal Railroad Administration as one of our partners for our upcoming STEM conference. And perhaps maybe we might even have you back at our Women's History Month program. But again, really want you all to know how grateful we are, how proud we are. I've actually seen your Lexi in the yoga and the hot bar room, and she is amazing, Todd. That woman, you all have really raised a star in all of your children, and so I congratulate you all.
You.
I salute you, and we pray that the Almighty continues to shower upon you both His guidance, His mercy, and His success.
Thank you. And Tyler, if I could you please extend my apologies to your support team for the lateness in my submission of material that you requested?
Oh, brother, they definitely appreciate that. I want to definitely both salute and acknowledge both Janez as well as Ahan and the entire STEM4US team. We really appreciate everybody who dedicates their time and energy to make sure these podcasts go off. And if you'd be interested in joining either our team or becoming one of our podcast guests, don't hesitate to let me know. And we look forward to following back with you. Again, this has been Talib Karim with STEM4US. We really appreciate you, and we wish you all a wonderful night. And keep your head up and stay safe out there.